The garden is quiet. You almost don't notice the movement near the feeder, something small, fast, nearly silent. A hummingbird. It hovers for a moment, wings blurred into a soft hum, then it's gone. You smile. You think nothing of it, until it happens again. The next morning, the same spot, the same quiet arrival. Soon you found yourself glancing toward the feeder without meaning to, waiting, almost expecting. Most people assume this is random, a bird passing through, nothing more. But the reality is different. There is a reason this particular hummingbird keeps returning to this particular window, and that reason has very little to do with luck. Stay with me, because understanding why will change the way you see that small visitor outside your glass. For decades, researchers wondered how a creature with a brain smaller than a grain of rice could find its way back to one exact flower in one exact garden out of an entire landscape. Dr. Susan Healy and Dr. Tom Hurley, working between the University of Oxford and the University of Lethbridge, set out to answer that question directly. Studying free-living rufous hummingbirds, they discovered something remarkable. The birds could remember the precise location of a rewarding flower after a single visit, not weeks of learning, once. Even more surprising, the birds weren't remembering what the flower looked like, they were remembering exactly where it was. Location mattered more than color, more than nearby landmarks, more than almost anything else. In a later study, Hurley and Healy found the birds also tracked something even harder to imagine: timing. They seemed to know roughly how long a flower needed before it would refill with nectar again. Visit too early, and the trip wastes precious energy. Wait too long, and another bird may claim it first. Somehow, these tiny travelers learned to avoid both mistakes. That means when a hummingbird returns to your feeder, it isn't guessing. It is retrieving a memory it built the very first time it found you, refined by every visit since. Memory alone doesn't explain everything, though. A 2018 study published in Scientific Reports followed long-billed hermits, a species of hummingbird that competes fiercely for prime feeding territory. Researchers expected the biggest, strongest males to win the best spots. They were only partly right. The researchers tested each bird's spatial memory using a series of feeder tasks, then compared the results against body size and physical strength. What they found reshaped how scientists thought about territorial competition. Spatial memory mattered just as much as size or strength in determining which males held their ground the longest. Some of these birds defend an area no larger than a quarter acre and defend it fiercely, chasing off rivals many times their own weight in effort. In other words, remembering where life can be found is its own kind of strength. Not the loudest kind, not the largest kind, but a quiet, decisive advantage that nature rewards again and again. Cornell Lab of Ornithology has tracked this pattern on a much larger scale. Drawing on years of citizen science observation data, their research shows hummingbirds return to consistent migration routes and familiar breeding grounds year after year, often to the very same yards that once offered them food. Some ruby-throated hummingbirds cross the Gulf of Mexico in a single non-stop flight, hundreds of miles over open water with no place to rest along the way, guided by memory, timing, and instinct built over countless generations. Your garden may not be random at all. It may be part of a route this bird has already learned to trust. There is something worth sitting with in that. The physical reality behind these visits is almost hard to believe. A hummingbird's wings can beat roughly 80 times every second. Its heart can race past 500 beats a minute, and higher still during flight. On a single day, it may visit more than 1,000 flowers, tracking which ones are worth returning to and which ones need more time to refill. At night, to survive the enormous energy cost of all this motion, many hummingbirds enter a state called torpor, dropping their metabolism by as much as 95% and slowing their heart rate to just a fraction of its daytime pace, until morning light returns and the search begins again. None of that happens by accident. It happens because remembering and returning is how this creature stays alive. Long before any of this was studied in a laboratory, people were already telling stories about hummingbirds returning. In ancient Mesoamerica, the Aztec people connected the hummingbird to Huitzilopochtli, a god associated with the sun and with warriors. Fallen fighters were believed to return as hummingbirds, drawn back by love and duty, their impossible flight blurring the line between the earthly and the divine. This is folklore, not science, but it reveals how long humans have sensed something meaningful in a bird that keeps coming home. Among several Native American traditions, including Hopi and Pueblo oral histories, hummingbirds represent joy, healing, and hope. Their arrival was often seen as a sign that life continues after hardship, and that the changing of seasons brings its own quiet renewal, along with the return of flowers and rain. In Mexican tradition, hummingbirds are sometimes described as gentle messengers, carrying memories of people who are loved and missed, their brief visits woven into the same season as remembrance itself. None of these are scientific claims, they are cultural ones, carried forward through generations rather than laboratories. But they share something with the research. Both are trying to answer the same quiet question: why does this return feel like it means something? Modern psychology may offer part of that answer, though not about the bird, about us. For years, many believed that healing from loss meant gradually letting go, moving on completely, setting the memory gently aside so life could continue. Researchers Klaas, Silverman, and Nickman challenged that idea with what they called continuing bonds theory. Later expanded by Dr. Robert Niemeyer at the University of Memphis, the theory suggests something different. Many people don't heal by forgetting, they heal by building a new relationship with memory, one that continues rather than closes. The connection doesn't disappear, it changes shape. So, when a hummingbird begins appearing outside a window that once belonged to someone who is no longer there, science explains the bird's behavior clearly. It remembers reliable nectar. It has learned this place. But it cannot explain what that return means to the person watching from inside. That part belongs somewhere else, somewhere quieter. Dr. Dacher Keltner at UC Berkeley has spent years studying a feeling connected to exactly this kind of moment: awe. His research shows that even brief moments of wonder shift our attention away from ourselves. Our worries grow quieter. Our sense of connection grows wider. We feel, if only briefly, part of something larger than the noise of an ordinary day. Broader research on nature connectedness supports this too. People who feel more closely connected to the natural world consistently report lower anxiety, lower depression, and a stronger overall sense of meaning in daily life. A 2024 study from North Carolina State University found that people who spent simply time watching birds experienced greater improvements in well-being than those who took a general walk in nature. Watching, specifically, made the difference, not walking past, not glancing up, watching. Perhaps that is what happens in the seconds a hummingbird hovers near your window. For just a moment, the noise of the day goes quiet. There is only the bird, its impossible wings, its complete stillness inside all that motion. Science can explain why the hummingbird returns. Reliable nectar, spatial memory, a trusted path retraced, refined by thousands of small decisions made over a lifetime too short for us to fully comprehend. What it cannot tell you is why its return stays with you long after it has flown away. That part is yours to keep. So the next time a hummingbird pauses at your window, or circles the same flower, or arrives again at the feeder you keep filling, you don't have to choose between the science and the feeling. You can hold both. The coffee is still cold. You still didn't notice, but this time you understand a little more about why the bird came back, and somehow that makes the moment feel even more remarkable, not less. Because wonder doesn't disappear when we understand something. Sometimes it grows. Tell me in the comments, has a hummingbird ever kept returning to you at a moment that mattered? I read every one. These are the stories I carry the longest.